In this presentation, I will show you how to create a maze using PowerPoint. In order to create your internet safety maze, we will need to first open Microsoft PowerPoint. Microsoft PowerPoint can be found under your Start button in your Programs. When we open PowerPoint, we're going to want to select a blank presentation. And in order to get this started correctly, we need to make sure that our slides are completely blank. So we will go to the Home tab, we will be in the Slides box, and we will select the layout. You can see here that the layout has a little caret, so that shows us that we have more options to choose from. We will select blank. In order to type on each of these slides quickly, we're going to go down to the View tab, and then we are going to select under Presentation Views the Outline view. So here we will type our maze start. So this will be our title slide, and we'll come back and we'll fix that later. After we type maze start, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to type level 1 tips, or tip, depending on how many levels you're going to put on here. And then we're going to hit enter. We're going to spell out level 1, and we are going to have this be where our actual level occurs. And then if you lose on level 1, you will need a you lose level 1. And I'm actually going to put that at the beginning of my slide so that I can easily see how things are located, or where things are located. So we're going to continue with this because we need to have 2 to 3 levels for our maze. So we hit enter after we are done typing. We've got level 2 tips, then level 2, then level 2 you lose, and then level 3 tips, level 3, and then level 3 you lose. We also need to have a you win, so when our individual has completed the entire level, they will have a you win slide. And then if we're going to use anything from the internet, we need to have a credits slide. Now that we're here on our credit slide, this is going to have other content on it, so we're going to go back to our Home tab, and we're going to select Layout. And in our layout, we're going to change the layout of this slide to title and content. Now we're going to go back up to our first slide, and in here we're going to change our layout to title slide, and we will put by and then your first and last name. So have your first name and then your last name. And so now we are ready to create a shape and link it to our first level, or our first tip level. So in order to create a shape, we need to go to the Insert tab. So from the Insert tab, we're going to go to the box that's called Illustrations, and we're going to click on our shapes. And we're just going to grab a rectangle. You could use any shape. I'm just going to grab a rectangle. I'm going to hold down my mouse and draw a rectangle. Now that I have a rectangle, this is going to be my start button. So I'm just going to start typing, and it will type in here. So I have my start button. And then we're going to want to link this button so that it will take us wherever we need to go when we are working in our maze. Something that's very important to note, and I'm going to zoom in so that you can see it, is when we click on a shape, it needs to have a solid line before we link it. So if I change my shape, so here I'm just going to edit the points of my shape and bring this down so that you can see it. When I click on my shape, I need to have a solid line. If I don't have a solid line when I'm going to link it, so if I'm typing in here, you can see that my line is a dash line. This is not going to work for us because it's going to select our words. We want to have a solid line, and the way that we get a solid line is by clicking on the edge of our shape. All of our lines are solid. So now we're ready to link this shape. I'm going to zoom back out. And we want, when we touch this shape, we want it to take us to the level 1 tips slide. So I'm going to click on my shape. I'm going to go to the Insert tab. I'm going to find the Links box, and then find the button that's called Action. From our action settings, we can see that it says mouse click. We are not using any mouse clicks in our maze at all. So we are not going to use a mouse click, we're going to use a mouse over, so we must change the tab. Right now it says that the action on the mouse over is none. We need this button right here, to take us to our next slide, which happens to be our level 1 tips. So we're going to select Hyperlink to, and it already says next slide, so we can just click OK. In order to test this to make sure that something actually happened, because it doesn't look like it did, we can do several things. We can hit the F5 button, and now we're in our presentation view, and we can just touch it. So just touch the shape and see if it works. I'm going to hit escape to exit my presentation mode. I'm going to come back and show you another way. So if we come down here, the bottom of our screen, right next to our zoom is our slideshow, and we can test this slide specifically. So here's this slide. We can test it. We know that it took us to the correct place, so now we are ready to move on. The next thing that I'll show you how to do is to create a shape, link it to you lose, and allow that shape to be copied and pasted to save you time. So I'm going to draw a shape. With this shape, I'm going to link it, so I'm going to make sure that I've clicked on my shape. I'm going to go to the Insert tab. I'm going to go to the Links box. I'm going to click on Action. Make sure that I select Mouse Over, Hyperlink To. I need to make sure that if I want this shape to take me to You Lose, is it my next slide? Yes, it is my next slide. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then I'm going to test it. Did that take me to the correct place? Yes, it did. So now all I need to do is click on this shape again. I'm going to hold down the Control key with my pinky, and I'm going to tap the C as in cat, key in order to copy it. So copy. And now I want to paste it, so I'm going to hold down the Control key and tap the V as in Victor, to paste. So now I have two shapes, and to make sure that I have linked this one or it stayed linked, I can test it. This is my second shape. It's linked to You Lose. So now I can just go ahead and move these shapes. I can paste again with Control V as in Victor, and now I have a maze that someone would have to go back and forth to get around. But I also need a shape on here that tells me that I can go to the next level. So I'm going to click on Shapes. I'm going to get a different shape and draw my shape. I'm going to type the word Next. Okay, so this is going to take me to the next place. I want to make sure that I have a solid line around this shape, and I'm going to go to Insert, Links, click on Action, Mouse Over, Hyperlink To. I want this to take me to my level 2 tips, not You Lose. So, our next slide does not work. So I must select slide ... From slide ... I can see a preview of each of my slides. And I want to select level 2 tips. And then click OK. Make sure it says Hyperlink to level 2 tips. Click OK. And now I'm going to test it. So if I touch the next button, it takes me to level 2 tips. Now I'd like to show you how to change the colors of your shapes. So I'm going to go back to my level 1 where I have several shapes. I can select a shape, and you can notice that when I select a shape, I have my Format tab. So if no shape is selected, I do not have a Format tab. If I click on a shape, it doesn't matter what shape it is, I have my Format tab. So within the Format tab, I can change the shape Fill by selecting any of these colors, selecting more fill colors, changing the hue of the color, or I can go to Standard and I can select a different color. So now I've changed the color here. I can also pick from my preset styles. Any of these options are available to me, so I can select any of these and change them. If you would like to change all of your shapes in one go, so maybe all of your shapes are blue, and that's not allowed in our assignment, so I want to change all of them at the same time. So I'm going to go to the Design tab, and I'm going to go over to the Variants box. In the Variants box, there's a little button that says More. If you hover over it, it's got a line and an arrow. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go to Colors. I can select any of these color themes, and you can see as I hover over them, my shapes are changing colors. So I just pick a theme that I like, or I could create a customized theme. So I can just select any theme that I care or that I like. And now all of my shapes have changed color, including all of the ones on my different slides. So now if I come back to my Format tab, I have a whole selection of hues to choose from, and all of my colors are different from that default blue that we're not supposed to use. Another option that you have to change your shape, say you want to create a background. I'm going to draw a shape, a big rectangle to select or to be in the background of my entire slide. This right now is in front of all of my stuff. I will show you how to move that in just a moment. So I'm going to go to Shape Fill, and I'm going to go down to Gradient. Now there are different gradient options right here, but I want to go to More Gradients. When I go to More Gradients, I can select Gradient Fill. And so here I can change the way that my shape looks by looking at my gradient stops. I can even change the color. I can add colors. I can take colors away. But here you can change the hues, change where the gradient starts and stops, and you can make something of your own choosing. You can also change the type of gradient. Right now this is linear going across. I can make it radial, and I can change the direction so you can see that it is a circle. Make it rectangular. And so I can do several different things. So if this is the background that I want, I can now right click on this shape and send it to the back. And now that is the background of my slide itself. Now I'd like to show you how to make an object move within a slide and continue to move. So here I have my level 2 tip slide. I have a next button. My level 2, here they have to zigzag back and forth, and I need to make sure, or I want to make this star move. So in order to do that, I need to make sure that it's linked to You Lose. So I'm going to make sure I've already linked it. So Action, mouse over, hyperlink to, next slide. My next slide is You Lose, so it's good to go. So I want this to move back and forth. And so in order to do that, I must click on my animations, and I must click on my animation pane. You can close your shape format pane if that happens to be open, but with the animation pane, we can see how things are going to be moving within our slide. So in our animations, when you select a shape, you can see these entrance effects. If I click the More option, we have emphasis effects, which is just, it's going to be there and it's just going to move or teeter or pulse or spin. An exit means it's going to leave. A motion path means it's going to move in that shape. So I want more of an entrance effect so it shows up. So I'm going to select an entrance effect, and I can pick from any of these, and you can see that it will play on your screen. So if you want an entrance effect and I just want it to show up over and over again, maybe I want it to zoom, I'm going to click OK. And so it's going to just appear. But right now it has a number 1 next to it, which means that I have to click in order for this shape to show up. We are not clicking, so we must change that. We must come over here to our animation pane. We must click the down arrow for our shape, and we're going to go to timing ... From timing, we want to change our start to with previous or after previous, depending on what you want to do. We're going to do after previous. And we want it to repeat over and over again. So we want this to show up multiple times. So we want it to show up and disappear, show up and disappear. So we're going to come to repeat, and we're going to select until end of slide. So it gives you a little preview of what it's doing, but I want to see what it looks like when I'm actually playing the game. So I'm going to come down here for our slideshow, and this is what was happening with the star. And so if I accidentally touch the star, then I have lost and I've gone to You Lose. You need to make sure that your You Lose has a try again button, takes them back to their tips so they are ready to start the maze. And so they would need to avoid the star. Something else that you can do with a shape is I can make this move back and forth. So maybe I want it to do a figure 8. So I want it to show up, and I also want it to do a figure 8. So I'm going to add a second animation, and I'm going to go down to motion paths. So here I have some different shapes. I can have it move in a football, but like I said, I would like it to do a figure 8, so I'm going to look for the figure 8 option. And so it's going to create a figure 8, so it's going to start and stop where it initially begins. I do not want a vertical figure 8, I just want a horizontal figure 8, which happens to be right here. And so I'm going to click OK. It also has a number 1 next to it. I need to make sure it's changed to a 0 so that it starts on its own. So I'm going to go down to timing ... and I'm going to select with previous because I want it to happen at the same time as my animation above it. And then I want it to repeat until end of slide. So when I click OK, you can see that it does one little example first, and now here's what it looks like. And so this is what my star does. It goes around in figure 8, but it also appears. If that's too sporadic for you, or for your level, maybe it's too hard, then it's definitely plausible and an option for you to possibly remove the entrance effect. And so I can just remove this effect, and so all my star will do is move in a figure 8. And so they have to avoid the star in order to make it around there to get to the next level. You can also change how fast an animation moves by going down to your timing ... So right now this is a medium. I can make it very slow or I can make it very fast, and so my figure 8 is going to move that quickly. I can also change where I want it to start. So if I want to expand my figure 8, you click on the shape itself. I can expand how tall, how wide my figure 8 is going to be, and now this is what it does. And so maybe that's too fast, so you can, slow it down to just fast instead of very fast, and you have a couple of options on how you want it to move. So that's how you make a shape move and continue to move on a slide. In order to make something come up late, so say I have a tip slide and I want this button to come up late, because right now when I play it, it is just here, but I want to encourage them to read it, or maybe I want to have a tip and I want to give them some options. I'm going to change the layout of this slide, so I'm going to go to Home, I'm going to go to Layout, and I'm going to have Title and Content, so I have a text box that I can use. So I'm going to type something like, never share your password. And then I'm going to make this a question. So never share your password is a question. So this is my next button, but I want to make it say true. And then I'm going to copy this button and I'm going to paste it and I'm going to say false. Now, before I can place these two, I need to check to see where my level 1 starts. My level 1 starts up here. So then I definitely want to change the way that this looks. So I want to have my options up here, true and false. And I want them to look exactly alike. Now before I had linked my shape to the next option. So false is the wrong option here. So I need to go and I want to take the link off of this one. And I want it to take them to you lose. So I'm going to go to Insert, Action, mouse over, it says next slide. I don't want it to be next slide. I want them, if they answer the question wrong, to lose. So I'm going to go down to slide ... and I'm going to select level 1 lose, which I've added a try again button to. So I click OK. So now we can test this out. Never share your password, true or false. True takes me to the level. I'm going to go back. If I select false, I've lost. Okay, so now I'm going to try again, and I'm back here for my question. Now, if I want the student to actually read my question, I want these shapes to come up late. So I'm going to select my shape, and I'm going to go to the Animations tab. And I want them to show up, so I am going to use a entrance effect. And so I'm going to go to More Effects, and I'm going to select something like the wheel or a split. I just want it to show up. So maybe I want it to fly in. So we're going to select fly in. We're going to click OK. Now this has a number 1. I don't want it to have a number 1, so I'm going to go over here to my animation pane, and I'm going to select timing ... and I want this to come up after the previous one, and I want it to delay for 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, this will show up. So I'm going to click OK, and I want to check it. So when I start from the very beginning, okay, I'm at May Start, I touch the Start button, never share your password. I have the false option here, but you saw how after 3 seconds, the true button shows up. I want to do the exact same thing to the false button. So I'm going to add the same effect, so the fly in. I'm going to go over here where I see that it's got a number 1. I'm going to select the timing ... I'm going to have the false button come in with the true button, so it's going to be with previous. And I'm going to have it delayed 3 seconds. So now we can see what it will look like when we go to this slide. Oh, I must not have selected that correctly. So we're going to change this to 3 seconds. Click OK. And we're going to see what this looks like. Never share your password. There's nothing else on the screen. Oh, the buttons just show up. So now I choose either true or false. Know that true is going to take me to the next level.